The United States is poised for a dramatic shift in immigration policy, one that could reshape the lives of millions of residents and their families. The White House is preparing to issue an executive action that will re-examine all green cards granted to individuals from 19 countries, primarily in the Middle East, Africa, and South Asia. This sweeping review is expected to scrutinize thousands of cases, regardless of how long these individuals have lived in the U.S. The move specifically targets legal permanent residents, people who have lived, worked, and built their lives in the United States for years, contributing to their communities and the economy. According to the administration, this is a national security measure. Officials argue that past vetting processes may have been flawed or incomplete, and that a thorough review is necessary to ensure the safety of the country. As a result, millions could now face new interviews, extensive background checks, and additional paperwork. This could create a massive backlog in the immigration system and spark deep anxiety among those affected, many of whom have already waited years for stability. The list of countries reportedly includes Afghanistan, Somalia, Yemen, Syria, and Pakistan, echoing earlier controversial policies that drew criticism from human rights groups and immigrant advocates. For families caught in this policy shift, the promise of stability and security is suddenly shattered. Their futures, once thought to be secure, are now filled with uncertainty and fear. Legal status, which was once seen as permanent and a pathway to the American dream, now appears conditional, subject to the changing tides of political decisions and executive actions. Advocacy groups and legal aid organizations are bracing for a surge of desperate calls and requests for help, as immigrants anxiously await details that could upend their lives and futures. The scale and impact of this policy are unprecedented, leaving millions in limbo and raising urgent questions about fairness, due process, and the future of America's immigrant communities. This proposal is the latest in a long line of Trump-era immigration crackdowns, marking another chapter in a story that has shaped the national debate for years. From the controversial travel ban targeting Muslim-majority countries to the strict zero-tolerance policy at the southern border, Trump has consistently pushed to restrict both legal and illegal immigration, making it a central theme of his presidency. The travel ban, after a series of heated legal battles and multiple revisions, was ultimately upheld by the Supreme Court, granting the president broad authority over who can enter the country and setting a powerful precedent for future executive actions. These policies have included the controversial separation of families at the border, drastically reduced refugee admissions, and new rules that favor wealthier, highly skilled immigrants over those seeking asylum or family reunification. Each move was designed to reshape not just the flow of people into America, but also the very criteria for who is allowed to become part of the nation, aiming to reduce overall immigration numbers. Now, the new Green Card review extends this restrictive approach even further, targeting those who are already living here legally and have built lives in the United States. It's not just about keeping new people out. It's about re-evaluating and potentially uprooting those who have already made the U.S. their home, creating uncertainty for millions. The legal and political fights over these past policies have set the stage for what promises to be an intense and high-stakes battle over the future of millions of green card holders. The administration's vision is clear: a fundamental redefinition of America's immigrant population, one that could have lasting effects on the nation's identity and its promise as a land of opportunity. The leaked memo reveals a radical new screening, an ideological fitness certification, or loyalty test for green card holders from the targeted countries. These individuals would face interviews probing their political beliefs, views on American values, and even interpretations of religious texts. Unlike traditional background checks, this process delves into private opinions and subjective criteria. Social media, financial records, and travel history would be scrutinized, with AI flagging patterns of concern. Even legal activities, like sending money home, could trigger suspicion. Failing this revetting could mean green card revocation and deportation proceedings. The rules would apply retroactively, destabilizing lives built under previous laws. Millions would find their status suddenly probationary, subject to vague ideological standards. The proposal marks a dramatic shift from established immigration norms. A green card, or permanent resident card, grants the right to live and work in the U.S. indefinitely, Holders can own property, attend schools, serve in the military, and are on a path to citizenship. They pay taxes and are protected by U.S. laws, but cannot vote or run for federal office. Deportation is possible only for serious crimes or fraud. Most green cards are obtained through family, employment, or as refugees after years of vetting. The process is already rigorous, involving multiple agencies and extensive checks. The new proposal challenges the very idea of permanent residency. It would allow revocation for broad, subjective reasons, not just clear legal violations. Even those who passed all previous checks could have their status re-litigated. The policy redefines what it means to belong in America. Civil rights groups and lawyers are preparing to challenge the policy in court. They argue it violates the Equal Protection Clause by targeting people based on national origin. The Due Process Clause also requires fair procedures before revoking a green card. A subjective loyalty test may not meet this standard. The administration will cite the Supreme Court's Trump versus Hawaii decision, which gave presidents broad authority over immigration for national security. But this policy targets people already living in the U.S., not just those seeking entry. Courts have historically given more rights to residents than to outsiders. The legal battle will hinge on whether the government can retroactively review and revoke permanent residency on new grounds. The outcome could reshape constitutional protections for millions. The stakes are enormous for both immigration law and civil liberties. The court's decision will set a precedent for future executive power. Among those most affected by recent policy changes are Afghans who bravely aided the U.S. military and government during 2 decades of conflict. Thousands of Afghans risked their lives as translators, guides, and support staff, placing their trust in America's promise of safety and a new beginning for their families. Many of these allies arrived in the U.S. through the Special Immigrant Visa Program or during the chaotic Kabul evacuation, receiving green cards in recognition of their service and sacrifice. Now, with Afghanistan added to the targeted list, these former allies face new and unexpected loyalty tests, casting a shadow over their futures. The irony is stark. Those who risked death to help America are now having their loyalty and intentions questioned by the very government they served. The SIV process was already notoriously slow and chaotic, especially in the aftermath of the U.S. withdrawal, leaving many in limbo for months or even years. The administration may argue that the rushed evacuations and incomplete vetting justify a second, more thorough review of these cases. Yet veterans and military leaders see this as a deep betrayal of America's word, a stain on national honor that could have lasting consequences for U.S. credibility. The message sent to future allies around the world is clear. U.S. promises, even those made in times of war, may not always be reliable or kept. This controversial aspect of the policy is drawing fierce opposition, even from some who typically support stricter immigration controls, highlighting the unique nature of these allies' sacrifices. For now, the fate of these Afghan allies, and America's reputation for keeping its promises, hangs in the balance, with families waiting anxiously for answers and hope. The administration claims current vetting is inadequate, especially for people from unstable countries. Verifying identities is tough when records are missing or forged, and officials often rely on interviews and biometrics. The nightmare scenario: a sleeper agent who passes all checks, lives quietly, then acts. Proponents argue only deep ideological vetting can catch hidden threats. Critics counter that such tests are intrusive and ineffective. Determined actors can fake answers, while innocent people may be wrongly flagged. False positives are likely, punishing thousands for a few potential threats. Community trust and intelligence gathering could suffer. The search for security risks overwhelming the system and harming the innocent. The challenge: balancing safety with fairness and civil rights. The driving force behind this policy is a worldview that sees immigration as a threat to national identity and security. Influenced by advisors like Stephen Miller, the administration believes liberal immigration has weakened America and exposed it to danger. They argue that some cultures are harder to assimilate and pose higher risks, pointing to Europe's struggles with multiculturalism. The targeted countries are seen as sources of unassimilable immigrants. Refugees, once viewed as victims, are now framed as potential threats. The goal, not just border security, but ideological alignment within the U.S. population. The loyalty test is central, an attempt to enforce a specific vision of American identity. This marks a shift from civic to cultural definitions of belonging. The proposal has ignited fierce debate, dividing the nation. Supporters see it as fulfilling promises to be tough on immigration and protect American interests. Critics call it discriminatory, cruel, and rooted in xenophobia, warning of economic and social fallout. Business leaders fear workforce instability. Civil rights groups decry the attack on law-abiding residents. The battle is raging on social media and in Congress, with both sides mobilizing supporters. Legal challenges are expected to move quickly, with possible injunctions from federal judges. Congressional hearings and legislative efforts will follow, though success is uncertain. The real fight may be for public opinion, as protests and media campaigns intensify. The future of millions, and the nation's character, hangs in the balance. The coming weeks will determine the fate of this sweeping policy.